Alright, so last week I made these cool looking merchant tables. I had to build a home for them, and I did it with this really cool looking merchant stand, and we're going to build it this week on Tabletop Witchcraft. Hey there, and welcome back to Tabletop Witchcraft. Last week we built 6 really cool and unique merchant tables just like this. And I knew I wanted to build a home for them, and what better thing to have than a really cool vendor stand just like this that you could have at the center of your medieval village. If you've been following the channel, you know I've been chipping away at my medieval village now for quite some time, so this is a really cool addition, and I'm really happy to have it. Now if you want to win a set of plans for the layout, all you have to do is like and comment on the video, and follow me on Instagram, because that's where I'll announce the winner next week. Alright, if you're ready, let's go grab those supplies, and let's get crafting. Okay, so this video is going to make use of the merchant benches that we made last week. So if you haven't seen that, make sure to catch up on that video after you watch this one. Now, to start off this build, we're going to grab some Shifting Lands pillar jigs. These things are absolutely awesome, and they really enhance your crafts very quickly and very easily. If you've been following the channel, you might have seen me use these a couple of weeks ago in my stable build, and you know they're really good price. Not trying to advertise for them, it's not sponsored by them, but it's just a really good product and I enjoy using it. Alright, so once we have this, we're going to add a little bit of wood texture to the post here, and to do so I'm using an X-Acto knife. When I'm working with something really delicate and small, I like to use the X-Acto knife for wood grain, because if you use something larger like a toothpick, it might start to tear the XPS foam. Now we're going to grab a Q-tip. We need to sturdy up this post because, you know, it's pretty fragile right towards the center. So to do so, I'm going to start by poking a hole with this clay sculpting tool right up the middle of this post. And typically, when you're pushing this in, you're going to be all set and it's going to put a nice hole in it. But I want to show this one. So this really isn't an issue if one of these pops and breaks. Sometimes what happens is instead of making a hole with the clay sculpting tool, you're just kind of pushing the XPS foam. It builds up and can cause a tear or a pop like that. Not an issue. We're going to fix it here in just a minute. Now adding a little bit of tacky glue to a Q-tip, we can use that as sort of a lubricant. That way we don't cause any more tears in the rest of this post right here. And we can slide that right into place, making sure to leave about, I'd say, ½ an inch or so of the Q-tip sticking out of the top. Once we have that in place, we can separate it just a little bit. Now we're going to add a little bit of hot glue, and that's going to hold it together real nice, and you're never going to see that once this is all painted up. Now you want to do this a bunch more times, and I even took the larger version of this post, as you can see right there, and made one of those for the center of the merchant tent. Okay, now we got to add a little bit of detail to the top of this merchant tent, and to do so I want to add a little bit of green stuff and a ball on the top of it, and we're going to use some Windex on our finger to help sculpt and mold it into that teardrop shape. Now you might have seen this in last week's video, bunch of stuff that I painted up. These are all cast pieces from Hirst Arts molds that I have, and I've painted up the top of the post there a bronze color, and now I'm going to make use of this like lion head emblem from that mold set. Adding just a little bit of tacky glue, that'll hold that on there real nice. And one of the nice things about tacky glue is that you know, it clears and kind of like reduces in size, so you won't have this big bubble of hardened glue once it's done. It really is a good job for something like this. Okay, now if you're interested in the plans for this, for the layout, you can find them down below in the description. And what you want to do is cut out all of the area for each post. It's all these little tiny square pieces along with a large square piece in the middle. And that's about not a half inch, it's about a 1/4 inch piece of MDF that I'm making this on. An interesting fact here is that was actually my original base for my cyberpunk build, but I had a patron that kind of steered me away from that, and I'm glad he did. Alright, now back to the plan. I just wanted to show this here. There's some dots in the middle of each one of what would be the benches for the stand. You want to poke a little hole in that, and then placing that on top of the 1/4 inch MDF, we can mark it up for where we're going to have to put our magnets here in just a few minutes. Now, grabbing our workbenches from last week, we're going to add some 3x6mm magnets in the base. That's going to allow us to place these benches on the merchant stand and swap them out for whatever we feel like doing down the road. Now, I've taken this outside. I didn't want to do it on my workbench. I took a 1/4-inch drill bit, I drilled right through, and now I'm working on top of some parchment paper so it doesn't stick to my workbench. And we're just going to glue these magnets right into the base. And don't worry about it being really neat because we're going to cover this all up in just a few minutes. Now I want to score up the area that we're going to be adding some hot glue to, just to give the base a little bit of texture for it to grab onto, because this is pretty smooth. Alright, now this is a really cool way of adding some ground texture if you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on like a Vallejo Mud Effect. This came from one of my patrons, Chad, who gave me the idea to use some silicone, and we just kind of put this into a yogurt cup, and we're going to add all kinds of stuff to this to add texture. It really came out nice. I was really a big fan of it. I ended up using some marine grade caulking. It's just what I had on hand. I would recommend using just like a standard caulking for this. So far I've added sand, a little bit of gravel from my yard. This is some ballast that I have from like a model train set we're going to use. And on the left right there, you can see it looks like a bunch of tea leaves. That's because it is. So another recommendation was not to use oregano for like organic matter in this because it's really strong smelling. And I'm glad I didn't, because even right now as I'm talking to you, I can smell like the tea leaves from this craft that I made. And it's really awesome. You can smell it, and it just kind of gives you that feel that you're in some kind of like spice market. You know, it's really cool, really neat. So just keep that in mind when you're adding any organic matter. You're going to be able to smell it when you're done. Now we need to add a little bit of color. I'm going to skip through this a little bit faster than I typically would, because this is just for a base color for the mud texture. You're going to see it's still going to be like a really light tan color. Even after adding a little bit of black ink, some burnt umber ink, some burnt umber paint, it still has a very light brown color to it. I'm adding a little bit of tile grout just to add a little bit more texture here right now. But once we get this onto the 1/4-inch MDF there on the left, we're going to go and paint this thing up because the color just really wasn't the way I wanted it. Now this is actually really hard to get onto the MDF, and it cured on this thing rock solid. So I was really impressed with how this cured. A little bit of a pain to work with, but overall, you know, a really cool, fun product to make yourself. And as you can see right there, we want to make sure to cover up the magnets. Alright, now another thing, when it comes to painting this up and painting up any type of natural earth color, there's so many different colors of brown and look and feel, whether it's wet or dry. Just keep adding washes, paint, grout, whatever you got kicking around to the craft until it looks exactly the way you want it. I ended up putting this wash down. It was a little too, like, I hate to say orange, but the picture here doesn't really do it justice. I wasn't super crazy about it. So as you can see, I added a little bit of a PVA glue wash. Now I'm adding some dried tile grout. Once this tile grout was on here and cured, I went ahead and added a lighter color tile grout. I worked that in with this little brush, and I just, you know, I wasn't crazy about it. I had to keep modifying, keep adjusting until I was happy. Alright, now once we got something that we like and we can live with, we're going to add some hot glue to the base, and we can finally glue these posts right in place. Now don't forget, we got to add a little bit of grass. This color really is going to bring this together. You know, we've got the brown post, the brown base. It definitely needed some color, so that's what we're going to do right here. And it really broke up the mud and really made the base of this merchant tent look really nice. And that's just some World War Scenics glue that I'm using to hold all this grass in place. Alright, back to a little bit of hot glue. We're going to use that to start gluing the Hirst Arts cast pieces in place as well. And a little tiny dab of some Eileen's tacky glue is going to hold this little mug in place. It's really tough when you're working with Hirst Arts or any cast piece because the hot glue tends to cure very quickly, so you're going to want to have some either wood glue or some tacky glue on hand. Alright, now this is really fun. We just get to start, decorating the base how we see fit. I had some of this grass kicking around. I bought this for, straw on top of a building. I'm just going to use a little of that there to fill one of these barrels. I made a few posts, some sticks out of some Q-tips and painted them up. This is my probably favorite part of the craft when I start getting to do all these fine little details. Alright, now the top of the merchant tent definitely needed something other than just that ball. So I'm taking a dove miniature right here, and with a little bit of accelerant and super glue, we're going to put that right in place and then paint that up the same color bronze that we did the ball on the top. And you could probably go ahead and, prime this piece first. I actually realized that it wasn't primed while I was painting it, so just keep that in mind. Alright, now we're going to add a little bit of something for the vendors to drink. Fill up the little basin right here with some water effect. Alright, now I took a bunch of butcher's twine and some beastly brown Vallejo paint to paint it up. And the cool thing about this twine is that super glue cures almost instantly to it. So keep that in mind when you're working with it. You really don't have much of time at all to work with it. Once you put it in place, it kind of sticks and cures almost instantly. And we're just going to make this spiderweb effect so we can have something to rest our fabric for the awning on the whole piece. And at this point, I was really up in the air with how I was going to do the canvas top. You'll see how I tackle that here in just a minute. Now you can take a keychain ring and use that right here. This is going to be a round piece that the very top of all of our awning is going to attach to. I didn't have one the right size, so I'm just making some out of a little bit of copper twine. And I actually like the way these little kind of nubs looked like on the right and left side of it. I could have left those, which I did. I think some of them might have got covered up by the canvas top, but those look really neat too. Alright, now this is where I was torn. I had a bunch of different colors of fabric. I was going to alternate the pattern. I was going to cover the entire top with a canvas top. In the end, I decided to go with one solid color and just alternate the opening spaces on the top. Alright, now grabbing just a little bit of double-sided tape. This is some really sticky stuff that I had. We're going to place that right on top of the awning and just fold that over the little ring that we made. And I'm going to do that in 3 locations and call it good. And as you can see, I poked some holes on the right and left side of the awning just so it'll slip over the posts for the vendor stand. That way we can change it if we want to down the road. Alright, so one of the really cool things about this build is actually its modularity. You can build a bunch of these tables with nothing on them. So when your adventurers come by and deplete all the goods, you can replace them with an empty table or just remove it for an empty booth station. Another cool thing is the awning on the top can come off. You can replace it with any color that you like depending on the town or setting that it's in. Now, don't forget, you can win a free set of plans for the layout. All you have to do is like and comment on the video. Follow me over on Instagram. Again, that's where I'll announce the winner next week. Also, if you like the content, please consider heading on over to Patreon. It's support over there that really helps fund this channel and allows me to keep getting the gear I need to produce these videos. Alright, until next time, I'll see you around.